I want to welcome everybody to our last workshop of 2025. Today's going to be actually a continuation of the last few workshops where we touched on everything like budgeting, investing, protection planning. Today we're going to really talk about retirement and what retirement really is. So, for those of you that haven't been to one of my workshops before, I'm Chris Price. I'm one of our certified financial planners, and I hold a monthly workshop to all our participants and all our clients to make sure that we all are learning a little bit more about the finance field. Those of you who've been part of the class before, you know that you've heard things from insurances, debt management, estate planning, investing, obviously retirement. Basically, anything and everything within the financial field are the things we talk about. For those of you who haven't been to one before, we look forward to seeing you on next year's. Well, today, some of our key takeaways, right? We want to understand the importance of saving for retirement. We want to explore the ways to grow retirement savings. We want to learn how and when we should be accessing our savings in retirement. Now, I want to tell everybody on this call as a small disclosure. This is generally speaking. So all of you on the call are going to have unique answers to some of these questions. This is just, like I said, designed for generally speaking. All of you will have unique answers. First and foremost, we have to visualize retirement. So when we talk about visualizing retirement, one of the things that we're going to be discussing is how long will we be in retirement, right? So let's first look at what we think life expectancy is. And we can see on our screen right here what that life expectancy was back in 1950 compared to what it was last time they did a life expectancy test, which was 2019. Not really much of a change, but we're still all in that 80 time frame. Yes, women have always lived longer than men. It looks like they still do, and it looks like they always will. Now, as you visualize your retirement, visualize what you're going to do. What we've seen is you could really break your retirement down into 3 sections. I know this says 3 decades, but it doesn't have to be 3 decades exactly. That is the unique thing for you. That first decade, we usually call it our go-go years. So our go-go years, we're doing a lot of the things we wanted to do, our bucket list items, going to new places, seeing new things, getting all the stuff done we've always thought about doing and wanted to do, but work got in the way. This is a very expensive time of retirement, mainly because we're trying to check off all those list items. And don't worry, I've heard everyone always say, well, I want to do them while I still can. And that's why most people try to do them in this first section, this go-go years. This second decade you see here, we usually call it our slow-go years. This is really where you're more comfortable in retirement. You're spending more time with maybe the grandkids or great-grandkids. You're really just enjoying the moment of where you are and how the day is. You're not spending the time running around the world checking off bucket list items. Could be, but generally speaking, we don't see that. And then that third decade is really what we call our no-go years. Now, this could also be in a very expensive time in your life, but not for the expenses you want to be, but maybe something like maintaining life or helping facilitate the end of life. So it's important to have this part planned, but something that's least talked about, I would say. But cool. Well, now let's talk about some things to consider when we're getting to retirement. So we just saw that we're each going to have different goals and different values in retirement. We also saw that retirement could be for a very long time. So what are some things we should be considering? Well, where is our income coming from? Social Security. Is Social Security going to be there for your whole life? And if it's not, is there a backup plan for it? Long-term care, right? We talked about how later on in life, those no-go years, we might need a little assistance with day-to-day things. We all have seen the cost of care increase significantly in this country. So what are we considering when it comes to long-term care? Pensions. Really, this is majority of people right now do not have pensions. Do you have income that's going to last throughout your life? And if not, should there be? Job market. So if we do need extra money in retirement, is it going to be harder or more difficult to do those things? Industries have changed significantly than they were maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Will you be able to jump back in there? And then obviously longevity, right? Longevity is basically how long are you going to need the money for? Well, on your slide now, if you guys do want to take a quick screenshot of this, this is actually a little cheat sheet that'll tell you some items that happen within retirement accounts and retirement scenarios. So this is a retirement timeline. This is when things happen in your life that trigger certain things you could take advantage of or certain things you have to do. So the first one we see here is age 50. Age 50 allows you to give more to your 401k or other retirement accounts. So if you're in a 401k at work right now and you're going to be 50 this year or turn 50 this year, you can start giving an extra amount. We'll go over how much that is. 59 and a half. 59 and a half is the first time period you can start taking money from retirement accounts without being penalized. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. And if you do have questions about those exceptions, let me know. Let's have a conversation about it and we can discuss. But generally speaking, that is the rule. The rule is at age 59 and a half, we can start taking money from our retirement accounts. Age 62. Age 62 is when we could first start taking Social Security. Now, there might be reasons to, or there might be reasons not to take Social Security at age 62, but this is the first age when you can actually start taking your Social Security benefits from Social Security or your retirement benefits from Social Security. I do want you to know that the starting time is 62. You don't have to be on your birthday. So one of the misnomers that I hear is some will say, well, if I don't take it at 62, I have to wait till 67 or I have to wait till age 70. That's not true. That's just how they organize it when you look at your Social Security statement. You could start at any month from age 62 to age 70. So find the month that's best for you. Age 65. Now, this says withdrawals from HSA, which we'll get to, but really most importantly about age 65 is the start of Medicare. Now, we did a class on Medicare earlier this year, right? There's actually 4 parts of Medicare, Part A, B, C, Supplement, and Advantage. They're all in that same little gap, and D, which is drugs. Withdrawals from HSA is you can start taking money from your HSA to pay things like Medicare premiums and things of that nature. Don't worry too much about the withdrawals from HSA, especially if you don't have one now or you're not sure what I'm talking about. Really, 65, the big conversation is Medicare. 67. Now, 67 is your normal retirement age for Social Security. So when Social Security is calculating your benefit, and you were born after 1960, they're counting 67 as the full retirement. Now, remember, I just said earlier you could take it at 62, and you just get a little reduction of what that full one is. And then we see 70, latest delay, Social Security. This is where Social Security does not increase anymore, and there'd be no reason to wait to take Social Security after age 70. So if you are getting close to that age and you haven't taken it, start it at age 70. There's no reason to wait after that. And last but not least, something that you might have heard called RMDs, required minimum distributions. Now, RMDs, required minimum distributions, are the amount you have to take out of your retirement account each year. Now, this number is different based on your age and based on how much money you have in the retirement account, but you do have to take something. Now, if you're using your retirement account for everyday expenses, you might already be satisfying this requirement. But if you're not, you have to take it out. And if you don't, there's a huge penalty to the amount you're supposed to take out. You see here it says age 73 or age 75. That depends on your birthday or your date of birth. So if you were born 1959 and earlier, you have to start at 73 taking required minimum distributions. If you were born 1960 and after, that age is 75. And now we're going to talk a little about saving for retirement. For those of you who are in some of our classes about saving for retirement, you heard us talk about things like the 50-30-20 rule and how we should budget our money and how much we should save for retirement. We talked about other ways and areas of how we should save, how much we should give in our 401ks, how much we should give in Roths, how much we should give in traditionals, all these different accounts, what they are and where we should save. But generally speaking, saving for retirement is going to be super important. Everyone on this call should kind of have a general idea of how much money they need at retirement. If you don't know, schedule a call with us. We'll quickly go over it. But basically, we should all know the dollar amount, right? Do we need $500,000? Do we need $1 million? Do we need $2 million in that retirement account in order to retire? It's going to be very, very, very hard to hit our goal if we don't know what that goal is, as we learned in our goal setting workshop we did earlier this year also. But again, if you're not familiar with what that number is, set a quick call, take 15 minutes. We'll go over it with you and we'll find out what that number is that we need to hit for you to be able to retire comfortably the way you want to. All right. For those of you wondering how much we can give to maybe our 401k we have or IRAs, these are the accounts that have some kind of tax advantage. We'll talk about it here in the future. But because they have a tax advantage, IRS limits the amount we can give. So for a 401k, doesn't matter if it's traditional, doesn't matter if it's Roth, doesn't matter if it's a combination, we can only give $23,500 if we're 49 and under. If we're 50 and over, we could give that plus an additional $7,500. And there's a new thing coming out next year where if you're 60, 61, 62, 63, you can give even more. We won't talk about that today, but there is a way that you could give more. For those of you who want to contribute to an IRA, you see the limits right there. Again, this is both for traditional, this is for Roth, or this is a combination of them too. All right. So quick little snapshot, because I know we've discussed this previously in this year. How does 401k get taxed? Well, you could either have a traditional 401k, which is what you see on your screen, or a Roth 401k, which we could always discuss. So a traditional 401k, you put the money from your paycheck to your 401k without paying tax. So it's a tax-free contribution. And then that money grows tax deferred, meaning you don't pay any tax on that money while it's growing. So as you've been seeing your 401k grow throughout the years, you've had to not pay any tax on that. Now, when you take that money out in retirement, that's when you're going to pay the tax. And the theory is you want to pay the tax when your income, your taxable income, is at its lowest. In retirement, your taxable income may be lower than you are when you are working. And that's the concept between the traditional 401k. For those of you who think your tax rate or taxable income is going to be higher in retirement, that's when a Roth comes into play. If you guys have any questions, just let us know. We'll obviously discuss that. So one of the big recommendations we make to our clients is there a way that we could diversify our tax code in retirement? Now, this doesn't work for everybody. If you're someone who's always saved in one kind of an account throughout your entire life, maybe that's just the way it's going to be, and we won't be able to have enough time in order to integrate this tax triangle. But this tax triangle you see here basically says, hey, let's see if we could have a few different accounts that are going to be taxed different. We're going to have on the top of the triangle our tax advantage accounts. Think of Roths, where we're going to take that money out tax-free. On the right-hand side of that triangle, we're talking about tax deferrals. This is where we've already got a tax benefit. We're going to be taxed full ordinary income in retirement. And we have taxable accounts where there's a combination of taxes and tax-free distributions, and it might be on a different tax rate like capital gains. In retirement, the tax advantage and the taxable accounts are usually the better accounts to have when it comes to taxes, and working tax deferral is usually the better account. So having a combination is always a key factor, especially when there might be adjustments in our life from a tax perspective. We may have years where we have a lot more taxable income. We may have years where we have a lot less taxable income. Think about maybe if we wanted to change our expenses. Maybe next year we're going on a huge trip around the world and we're taking out a large distribution. That is unnormal, meaning we don't normally have this large distribution. Well, that year is going to be a higher tax year. How do we level it out throughout the years? You see on the screen right here, kind of an example of someone's ages and tax amount changing based on something that may happen. Spouses retire, contributions to a charitable donation, receive maybe an inherited IRA, someone passes away, different things that are going to happen in your life that will change your tax code. The big difference I can say that most people experience in retirement is more control over their income than they had when they were working. When you were working, especially on salary, you got the same income throughout the years, maybe with raises and raises, but the same general income, meaning your taxes were generally the same. Well, in retirement, you have control over that. You can take more money from a retirement account or less money from a retirement account throughout different years, making different income scenarios. All right, cool. Now let's talk about spending. Let's talk about spending in retirement. What does spending in retirement look like? Now, again, this is where it's super unique to everybody on this call. I can't tell you a single person I've sat down with and they've had the same retirement expenses as anyone else. So what we're talking about is generally when we statistically go out to the market and say, what do retirees spend their stuff on? This is what we're going to see going to happen. The first thing on your slide is a conversation about, hey, how much do we think we're going to need in retirement? Now it's based on our expenses. And statistically speaking, we say about 75% of your expenses now, including taxes, will be there in retirement, which makes sense because you're not saving for retirement anymore. Your taxes are usually a little bit lower. Maybe you have a little bit less debt. That's where the 75% comes into play. So if you're someone who says, let's say making $100,000 a year, you should expect that you might be starting out spending $75,000 that first year of retirement. That's what this basically means. Again, everyone's unique on this. But if we did ask the population where they spend their money when they're 65 and older, on your screen is really what that percentage is. So the largest majority going to housing. This could be anything like mortgages, property taxes, which are obviously due right now, or just keeping the lights on, right? All those things that have to do with the whole housing. We have our next largest expense, which is on the bottom right, which is healthcare. Topic for discussion all the time, but a big expense. We have food, we have entertainment, we have transportation, and we have utilities. Now, mind you, this is for everyone 65 and older that did this survey. We talked earlier today about the different stages that you're in retirement. So this is a combination of those stages. So think of your expenses of maybe being more focused in one area, the first stage of your retirement, and more focused in another area, the latter stages of your retirement. And always when it comes to expenses, let's consider inflation. So here is 3 items that have grown since 2006 to 2023. That's only a 7-year difference. And we see some of these expenses about 150% more than they were previously. I bring this up because I can't tell you how many conversations we have with clients, and they maybe say, hey, I don't want any risk in my investments because I'm retiring tomorrow. Yes, that is true. You are retiring tomorrow and you will need that money tomorrow, but you also have to plan out for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And what will the cost of items be for that particular time? And again, that's another conversation we had earlier about bucketing your retirement accounts with different time horizons so you can have different risk tolerances. Cool. Another statistic which I think is alerting is where are most retirees, meaning 65 and older, getting their income from? Well, we could see the two largest being Social Security, something we don't have control over, and wages, meaning having to work. I hope everyone on this call who is not retired and sees this thinks, okay, well, what am I going to do not to be in that category? I would rather see a lot more of my income come from my interest and dividends or something of that nature so I can control my expenses a little bit more because I've saved appropriately. Cool. Awesome. All right, let's put it all together now. So, estimate retirement expenses is super important. Use what you spend today, take out some of the debts you won't have, and inflate that number for the future. Right? Inventory sources of retirement income. Which retirement income sources will you have? Social Security, pension, rental income, distributions from your 401k, your IRA. Where are they going to come from and where should they be? And consider tax implications. Remember, it doesn't matter how much income you get, it matters how much income you keep. Well, I want to thank everyone for being part of this workshop, this class. I want to thank everyone who's been part of all our workshops and our classes this year. It's been a great year. Everyone will start to receive the calendar for next year, which will have things like goal setting, retirement planning, budgeting, estate planning, all the things we talked about this year. We'll use updated numbers, obviously, for 2026. In 2026, there's been a lot of changes, right? With the Secure Act 2.0 taking more effects in 2026 than they did in 2025, with the big, beautiful bill that changed some of our tax code, especially for retirees. So there'll be a lot of conversations to have and updates to have. I want to wish everyone an amazing end of the year and happy holidays, and we'll see you guys in 2026.